All right, Joe. This is BS with Joe.
And we've reached the end of 2024.
Yes, we have. Happy holidays to all those who celebrated holidays. And I hope everybody this new year, it's going to be hard, but I think it's going to be prosperous.
I'm optimistic.
Hopefully optimistic. I
Yes.
like that. All right, so Joe, what are we going to be talking about today?
I kind of wanted to talk about the ATF a little bit.
Awesome. So what about the ATF?
All right, so let's start with a little bit of background on the ATF. So
It stands for Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
exactly.
Yeah.
The ATF was originally formed as a division of the Treasury Department,
Yes.
and their basic function at that time was basically just to make sure that weapons sales were being done in a legal manner.
Not only in a legal manner, but they also wanted it to hurt a little bit, because if you got an NFA item, a suppressor, a short barrel rifle, short barrel shotgun, or any other weapon, or which would be like a machine gun, you would have to pay a $200 tax stamp,
Right.
and that made it hurt. So that way, most individuals who are looking for home defense, self-defense, they would be.
They wouldn't buy stuff they don't really need.
They won't buy stuff they won't really need. And it would also curtail a lot of the mob, and they could also track that with the mob to the mob.
Right.
Because
Well,
NFA items, you have to get a fingerprint, you have to do a background check, you have to do all this stuff.
And it wasn't partially it was due to the mob, but a lot of the reasons that the ATF was founded in 1972 had a lot to do with the rioting and stuff in 1968.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't remember there being that much of a weapon issue in '68,
No.
but that was supposedly their excuse.
Well, yeah, the ATF, like you were saying.
So we're talking 52 years ago.
Yes. And there's been a lot of. It was a lot of people were for it.
Mm-hmm.
Until they started realizing it was starting to get mismanaged, and they were using it as a weapon to go after it.
Well, the ATF was actually a very small group
Mhm.
until 1990.
That's what I was getting ready to say, because then that's when it grew, and then that's when they went after.
The ATF was never weaponized until 1990. They didn't have weapons. They weren't law enforcement.
No.
They were like the IRS. They were just
Right.
pencil pushers.
And I think it started, around Ruby Ridge.
Right. Well, 1991 was Waco and Ruby Ridge.
Yeah. And if anybody doesn't know anything about Ruby Ridge, go ahead and look it up. There's all kinds of documentaries, evidence on it.
Mm-hmm.
The individual at Ruby Ridge, he had a farm or a property. It wasn't really a farm. He was kind of homesteading.
Yeah.
He had a son, a young son, a wife, and a newborn.
Right.
And the reason why the ATF went after him was because he had a shotgun, and shotguns at the end of the shotguns, they have a choke for a lot of bird hunting or target shooting.
Right.
Well, he blew the end of his choke off his shotgun,
Mm-hmm.
and so he went to go get it fixed, and they said, well, we can't really fix it. You can't really do much to it because you already chopped off the end of your shotgun, sawing off the choke.
Right.
Well, that made it below the minimum standard for a short barrel shotgun.
Yeah, the length was too short of the barrel.
Right. And so he took
by
it
like half an inch.
half an inch.
Yeah.
He took it home.
Mm-hmm.
The FFL reported it, I believe, to the ATF.
Mm-hmm.
And the ATF with the FBI did an investigation on him. And they had his property surrounded with SWAT individuals, and his son with his dog is out in the woods. His dog goes, I guess after, I don't know what exactly took place, but his son shot at an ATF agent or FBI agent, and
Well, they thought they were under attack.
they thought they were under attack. And
Well, they were.
right. And his son didn't know who it was. And
No.
he saw somebody with a gun and was probably, I don't know if it was an altercation with the agent and the dog that led to the shooting of the son.
That's what the documentary said.
That's what the documentary
It's
said.
been a long time since I watched
Yes,
it.
and nobody really knows. It's probably in a report, and I don't know if they've released that report or read the report. And you don't know if the agent is telling the truth on that.
True.
But his son wound up getting shot and killed. And then they wound up raiding his home,
They shot his wife through the door.
shot his wife through the door with their newborn,
Right.
and he was the only one that survived.
Yeah.
And I don't remember his name, but you could look it up. And it was all based off of a misunderstanding on a shotgun and breaking a Second Amendment. It's not even breaking the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is there to protect us. And,
This could have been a knock on the door and a conversation. It didn't have to be a firefight.
Yeah, exactly. And then that also goes into Waco. Now,
Waco, that one wouldn't have worked out as a knock on the door.
that wouldn't have worked out as a knock on the door. But the thing is with Waco is they had this huge thing. They tried to do a raid
Right.
when they could have just sat back and waited them out or something. Because the individuals that were part of the cult were starting to
They were starting to turn on him.
they were starting to turn on them, and if they would have just let them turn,
Yeah.
it would have happened more peacefully or violently within its own compound.
Yeah.
Which
I don't think there would have been that much violence. And they were ready. They were ready to tell
To
him
s-
to get lost.
yeah, they were getting ready to get rid of them, and there wouldn't have been that needless death of all those children that trapped themselves in a cooler or
Yeah.
in a food storage area because it was kind of like walled up because it was like a cooler. It was self-cooled by the thickness of the walls.
Right.
And when they went in
It
there,
was the most protected place in the building.
yeah, and then when the fire started, they went in there and they died from inhalation, smoke inhalation,
Yep.
and that could have all been avoided. But no, they had to go. Oh, we got to charge. We got guys in there.
Well, they were throwing gas in the windows. And
tear
the
gas.
thing is, those tear gas grenades cause fires. It's not.
They've
just,
been known to cause fire.
right, and they did in that particular case. That's what started the fires was the tear gas grenades.
Hmm. And not only that, but they were suppressing the individuals from inside to try to prevent the fire from
Right.
spreading.
Yep.
They knew it was going to possibly kill everyone inside that
I
compound.
think they intended to kill everyone inside that compound. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, Waco and Ruby Ridge, that really was the beginning of the hopefully end of ATF because they need to go.
Oh yeah. The thing is it goes to like criminals. They don't care about it.
No.
I saw a video on Twitter because Twitter they show very violent and gruesome things, but it's truth.
Yeah.
Of these individuals, these officers that were knocking on a door of an individual, and they had a Glock switch and mowed down those officers. And those, I know at least one officer probably expired from that altercation. And criminals are going to have these firearms. They have them already. They're machine guns, and law-abiding citizens don't have those.
No.
And
But yet they're going after people like what was the guy that worked at the airport in Ohio?
yeah,
What's his name?
I don't know his name. I know who you're talking about. It was an individual who had firearms, and
Yeah, he was a collector.
and he was a collector, and he collected possibly a machine gun. And the thing is, everybody said, "Oh, there's no machine guns out there." There's machine guns out there.
Well, it's legal in Louisiana.
They're legal, and there's certain like pre-86 ban machine guns you could have.
Yeah.
You gotta probably go through a background check just like a NFA item.
I'm sure.
We don't know. We're not attorneys. Don't take this as law advice. But he had those in his collection,
Mm-hmm.
and the FBI raid his building, and then he pulls out a firearm thinking he's being robbed by some individual,
Right.
and he gets killed by law enforcement.
Yeah.
So here you have one individual that's getting
So-
his door knocked, and they're
There was-
going down.
There was just a congressional hearing over that particular incident in
Yeah.
in Ohio.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, just last week there was
Yeah.
a congressional hearing, and they were talking about in the hearing. I don't remember the name of the congressman. He was a Democrat who was basically putting the ATF on the stand, saying, "Listen, here's the video. Let's play the video of the week before when you met in the parking lot, and you could have done the raid then. There was no reason not to, other than the fact that he wasn't home. But your warrant wasn't for the individual; it was for the weapons. So why do you have to be home in the first place?"
He didn't have to be home.
Right.
And not only that, but that could have probably been easily solved with a knock.
It could have. In regular hours, not 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever god awful time it was. With guns drawn. It was absolutely unnecessary. Again.
Yeah, and that's not the only time. There was the we're talking about the CEO for the airport, or are we talking
Yeah,
about
the airport guy.
the airport guy? There's another individual who is also a collector.
Hoover?
No, not Matt Hoover.
Okay.
I don't know his individual. He's an older gentleman. He's disabled, and he really couldn't even move out of his house or out of his chair.
Oh, I remember this story. Yeah.
And he gets raided just like all these other individuals, and he gets shot and killed.
Yeah.
You know, so they're doing. It almost seems like as if they're treating law-abiding citizens as if they're hardcore criminals, and then they're treating hardcore criminals as legal citizens.
Right.
Whenever
Well,
they're getting mowed down by a
They
clock
don't
switch.
have the balls to go after the real criminals.
No, they don't. Well, I think they do. I think what it is it's just
They're harder to find.
they're harder. I think what it is it's more of the Department of Justice.
Okay.
I think they are literally looking for any individuals who support, like, that are considered right-wing individuals who have, like, Gadsden flags and individuals like that. I think they're focusing on them and treating them like these hardcore criminals because they're going to start an organization and take over the Capitol building or something like that, like January 6th. And that's what they're focusing on, I think. A lot of the Department of Justices are. Instead of individuals who have, like, lock switches, who are doing whatever. You know, we don't know what kind of crimes they're committing, but, you know, that's my opinion. And that's why they're going after individuals like that versus individuals who have illegal guns and stolen firearms.
And now you've got the state of Illinois talking about actually having the conversation about knocking on doors and confiscating guns.
Yeah,
Which,
and
excuse me?
that's a violation of so many amendments.
Right.
And our Constitution is constantly being violated.
Yeah.
They'll add like amendments, like the one with taxation, to tax us when our founders never intended us to be taxed. They always intended it to be a tariff system.
Right.
And that
was the 1920s, right? When the IRS was formed.
yeah, it was amendment that
It
was
was right around the same time as the Federal Reserve came into
It's when they started.
the globalist agenda.
Well, what it is they wanted to the government wanted to print more money than what they had.
Right. They moved away from the
Gold standard. And so they wanted to do that. And so there was a lot of things that happened around that time. They moved off the gold standard. They started taxing individuals instead of tariffs. And that's when our economy went from a industrial situation, producing goods for the world,
Right.
and thriving, to a war thing and spreading our influence through war, instead of our influence through prosperity.
Well, I mean, 1917, we really didn't have much of a choice.
No, World War I was on the doorsteps, but I think that was the catalyst to that, because I think part of the reason was a
But
lot
the
of
IRS was formed after World War One.
they were because of the amendments.
Right.
They couldn't create taxes until an amendment came into effect.
Correct.
And that all, I think, stems from countries that just went to war can't pay back the U.S. They can't pay these tariffs and or buy American goods because they don't have the money.
Because all of Europe just went down.
All of Europe went down, and that was one of the major buyers of U.S. goods.
Yeah.
And so that's when we had to change our monetary system. And ever since then, we've kind of been in a conflict of one or another.
Well, that's kind of the way that our economy is supported right now is by war. Unfortunately, Trump is the only president in my lifetime that hasn't started some kind of a conflict.
He is. He's the only president that hasn't started conflict, and he was planning on ending conflicts. He was planning on getting out of the Middle East before Biden did, and his plans differed from Biden's. Biden pulled out in the summer or fall. Was it? No, it was fall. It was summer.
It was summer.
It was summer. It was in July, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, I think it was late summer.
Yeah, it was late summer.
Yeah.
And so the Middle East, it's a very agricultural country.
Right.
So in the spring they sow their crops, in the fall they reap their crops. And so when you want to pull out of something is when people are busy.
Yeah.
So when they're either reaping their crops or sowing their crops or reaping their crops. I would prefer reaping because it's a more of a labor intensive to reap your crops versus sow your crops.
And there's a much stronger timetable. You have X number of days to get this done. Whereas sowing, okay, if we don't sow it this week, we can sow it next week.
Correct. And so when you want to pull out is when all your military-aged males are busy working on the farms. Mm-hmm. Not in the summer when they don't have anything to do and they're looking for something to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this is going on. So let's do this.
Yeah.
And then the hasteness of which he pulled out. But he also, I've seen individuals talk about Trump when he wanted to pull out, and he was talking to General Milley, how General Milley was saying, "Oh, you gotta leave it all. It's going to cost too much to bring it back." Well, you got a brand new plane, and you got a pilot who has to get back some way. He could fly the plane with a bunch of goods on it, or soldiers, or whatever, instead of leaving it there.
Right. And there were advisors for Biden telling him that it was cheaper to leave it there.
When you have Trump, who is a businessman, knows all about moving goods and transporting things and making things, knows it wasn't cheaper to leave it there, knows it was going to cost money to bring it back, but you bring back as much as you can because you already paid for it. And then we could go into more things about Milley and other things like that, but let's stay with the ATF and how it needs to be abolished.
Well, I think that it's going to definitely come under some serious scrutiny under Trump, and under this administration, it's going to be the ATF, the FBI, the CIA, all of the three-letter agencies are going to.
Well, not only the three-letter agencies, you also got the. So you were saying the FDA.
Yeah.
You also have the
EPA.
EPA. You also have the Food and Drug Administration.
Right.
Well, that's food, but also the pharmaceutical industries and things like this. There's so much regulation that on our producers of goods, it makes it so hard to produce a good here in the U.S. And it's not just for, the good of the United States. It's also, like you look at, if it was for the good of the United States, we wouldn't be putting chemicals in food products.
Chemicals that are illegal in most other countries.
Yeah, illegal in most countries.
Yeah.
And they're toxins. They're known to be toxins. We're putting in our food so it lasts longer on the shelves.
Right.
Well, produce less of the good if it's going to go bad. And now you could also have more jobs by producing better quality foods. And I'm sure more Americans would pay a little extra more for knowing that their food is healthier for them. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, these companies, they have to buy this product to add it into their foods. Mm-hmm. And the reason why you don't have smaller food manufacturers competing with General Mills and Nabisco and all these other individuals is because they can't get those chemicals to put into the foods. Mm-hmm. And it makes it more expensive for them to do it anyway. Right. But regulations is telling them you have to put it into the foods. You have to poison Americans. You have to put fluoride in the water.
Right.
And fluoride in the water, I honestly believe the reason why they put fluoride in the water was because they had a ton of fluoride. They needed to do something with it, and they knew it killed a bunch of shit in the water. So let's just use it to help clean the water.
Supposedly it was for teeth.
Yeah. Brush your teeth. That's the best thing for your teeth.
I know.
And yes, it's probably good for developing individuals for their teeth, but also it's bad for individuals for other parts of their organs.
It's very bad for. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I got fluoride treatments in my mouth.
And that's just localized. It's in the mouth. It's not in your whole body by drinking water.
Right.
And
a lot of municipalities have started to ban the fluoride.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And DeSantis recently, there was a byproduct of fertilizers that is radioactive.
Really?
He actually allowed road construction crews to implement it into asphalt.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, that's bad," but we're not eating asphalt.
True.
And
is it going to get into the ground?
It may get into the ground, but also you got to think of it. It's a byproduct of fertilizer.
Yeah.
So it's something that probably, you look at bananas. Bananas are even radioactive.
Okay.
You take a Geiger counter to a banana, it'll react. And that's a food product that we eat.
Yeah.
And it's because of the potassium in the banana. Okay. So it is radiological. And it may seep into groundwater and things like that. But you got to think of it this way too, is will it make the asphalt last longer? Is it a cheaper product to use in asphalt? And we got to weigh on things of what to do with this. And the thing is, that product was already being stored in a landfill area that's radioactive. So it's already going to seep into the groundwater anyway, because we had no way of doing anything with this product.
Right.
So if you could trap it in asphalt, possibly preventing it from getting into groundwater through just raining on the raw product, it probably is better. It could be. We don't know. I'm not a scientist. Yeah. But this is something that did pass, that DeSantis did.
This is the first I've heard about this one.
Yes, he did pass this, and he did allow this to go into asphalt.
Okay.
Now, the thing is, I think a lot of it is to try to help with spending and budgets, and also, what do you do with this product that's radioactive that's in Florida?
Right.
So, I mean, at least there's individuals that are trying to solve a problem and trying to look out for the environment, I believe. Because I honestly believe that him and his staff are looking out for the environment. I don't think they're trying to do things to harm the environment.
I trust him a lot more than I do Gavin Newsom.
Oh, yeah. I definitely trust him a lot more than the...
or Pritzker.
Yeah, than the previous individual that was running against DeSantis.
Yeah, that too.
So, is there anything else you want to talk about? We went on the ATF, but we wound up going on all three-letter agencies.
We did. I mean, we could. Each individual three-letter agency could be its own episode.
True, but more about the ATF. The ATF. Now, I'm kind of iffy on getting it completely banned because.
I personally think it should go back to what it was in the 1970s.
Yes, I think the agency should be definitely shrunk.
It needs to be disarmed.
Disarmed and shrunk.
Yes.
It should just go back to a revenue and background check service.
Yes.
And even then, you would have fewer people
But
involved because with
the ATF didn't even do the background checks. The FBI does the background check.
yeah, well, they do to a point. I don't know if they do the yeah. You're right. The FBI
The
does it
FBI does it.
because NFA items go through the FBI and not the ATF.
Yep, you go get your fingerprints done and send it to the FBI.
I didn't think about that.
And then the state does theirs too.
Yeah, and so the ATF really doesn't need to be involved with them either.
Right.
We could even do away with the ATF
The,
completely.
the ATF was, like I said, the ATF was formed in order to make sure that sales of firearms was done legally.
You're right. And the FBI is the one that does the NFA items.
Correct.
The reason why I was worried about getting rid of the ATF was the NFA. Now the NFA, it's a double-edged sword for me because it is a bunch of hoops that everybody has to jump through to get a short barrel shotgun pistol.
Some hoops are okay.
Right. And the reason why I don't want it to get abolished is because a $200 tax stamp nowadays versus in the 1920s
Yeah.
is a hell of a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
True. And the background check just prevents individuals who aren't legal to have those firearms anyway. And if you don't have the ATF, you don't have to worry about them shooting your dog or jumping or kicking in your door and shooting you.
At the very least, they need to be de-weaponized and they need to be reined in so they're not trying to create laws that should have been created in Congress and they're just saying, okay, well, this is a law now.
Yeah, like the short barrel pistol braces and not short barrel, but pistol braces and
Which is short barrel
bump
rifles.
stocks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, pistol braces is a brace that's put on a pistol to prevent it from becoming a short barrel rifle.
Right.
Now that's a loophole that individuals have came up with. I don't even think it's a loophole. What it is, it's actually
It's an assistive device.
it's an assistive device.
Yeah. So you can hold it more steady.
For individuals who can't hold it, and the government can't tell who it can have this item and not have this item for this pistol, and
I don't understand why they even went after pistol braces.
well, they did because they were considering them short barrel rifles because people were using them as short barrel rifles. But that's our right to do what we please with these tools once we have them.
Exactly.
And
It's just like the EPA telling us we can't modify our cars.
right.
It's not your car.
Right, and this is going to go after. This is going to turn. This makes a big, huge issue with NFA items with the Supreme Court, because once an item becomes readily available and is out there in most individuals' hands, it's no longer something that the Supreme Court says you can regulate this for some individuals and not others.
Right.
Therefore, you need to either probably not regulate it anymore. So, and if the ATF says and the government says that pistol braces are short barrel rifles, then they need to be strucken off of the registry as an NFA item.
I know the Supreme Court has been hearing a whole lot of things on the Second Amendment in the last year.
They have, and there's the thing. So, a lot of people are upset with the Supreme Court. A lot of people are happy with the Supreme Court because there's a lot of things they're not listening to because there's other cases coming up the chain that all involve a lot of those accompanying.
They're being very careful about not making a ruling here that's going to affect that ruling there.
Correct.
But
so
at the same time, they're following the letter of the law.
They are, and they're not following the letter of the law. They're following the Constitution the way the Constitution was intended to be written.
Which is the letter of the law.
Right, and it's a dead document.
The law of the land.
Right, it's a dead document. A lot of your newer individuals or progressive individuals believe that it's a living document. It's based off of how I feel about the way this was written. That's not the way it was written.
No.
Therefore, feelings are not involved in it. It's a dead document.
Yeah, it has
You
nothing
have
to do
to
with feelings.
follow it to the law, to the letter.
Right.
And thou shalt not be infringed, shall not be infringed. And they've been infringing on a lot of our rights.
On that note,
On that note, think that should end this episode.
it's time.
It's time. We putting that one to bed. Likes, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Joe, you got anything else?
Nope.
Nope.
We will move on